myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. It feels alright.
Hi, welcome along to NUFC Matters. Delighted to welcome Lee Clark back to the show. How are you, Lee?
I'm good, Steve. Thanks. Great to be back on after a little bit of a break.
Yeah, good to see you, mate. I mean, you kept the fans going through lockdown with a lot of the ex-players by jumping on NUFC Matters, which we always appreciate. And I just want to say congratulations to your son, mate, Bobby, making his pro debut at Liverpool as well. He must be a very proud dad.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, obviously pre-season, the managers want to look at the young players, just very similar to what Eddie Howe's doing at Newcastle. And Bobby got his opportunity in Bangkok, Liverpool Man United game for 30 minutes in front of 65,000. Then came on for the last 15-20 minutes in Singapore against Palace to play as a second striker alongside Mo Salah. So very special moment, and you know, shows that the manager there is taking notice of him. It gives Bobby the opportunity to get a glimpse of what's required to play at that level, the standards that you have to reach, the qualities that you have to be at. So it's been a great pre-season for him. He's now working with the under-21 group, which is great. So it's been a great move for him. He's enjoyed it a lot. He's learned a hell of a lot in a short period of time, because he hasn't even been there a year yet. I mean, it's coming up to it in the next few weeks. But so he's done a lot in a short period of time at an absolute huge football club. So very proud, but obviously there's a lot more hard work, which the good thing is he knows that you know, what he experienced while he was away with them was to give him an example of what's required to be playing at the very, very top.
Great stuff, mate. We'll pass on our very best wishes. I hope he does really well. Look forward to seeing him in action very, very soon. We've got you on today, though, to do your dream team. The only other player to do this was Steve Howe, which was probably about 6 or 7 months ago. We've done a lot of the fans, a lot of the regular contributors to the show. So great to have your choice. And I've got to be honest, when you sent me it, blew me away. Really, really good team. And being a Newcastle fan, of course, you know the history of the club, but you've also got a couple of players who you've played with. So let's start with your goalkeeper. Who have you selected as your goalkeeper, Lee?
Yeah, obviously before I start with everything, Steve, I've got 11 starting players and 5 substitutes. It was absolutely ridiculous. I changed so many times. You know, that was you know, it's when you think that some of the players that aren't even in the 16 is absolutely crazy, and it's one of them, as I used to say when I was a manager to the players. Unfortunately, I can only start with 11 and I can only pick 16. There's probably 25, 30 that could be in around this group, but it's just people that I've obviously you know, seen as a supporter, or learned about as a supporter of the club, the history. And you know me yourself, I'm a massive fan of what the Fairs Cups lads did. Not enough of them get enough credit, and so you try to include some of them, because obviously they're still the history makers of the football club, the last team to win proper silverware. So there's a couple of those included as well. So starting off in goal, really tough. You know my relationship personally with Pavel, and not only that, is a great friend, but a great goalkeeper. Started with Tommy Wright as well, played with Tommy, good goalkeeper as well, international. Seen some great goalkeepers of the past. Ian McFall obviously was part of the Fairs Cup group, but you know, had the opportunity to play alongside this lad, and he's up there with the very, very best of his era, and probably any era. And so obviously sheer given, you know, so we just got to he's just top draw. He wasn't the biggest in terms of height, but he had the stature, he had the presence, and he could do everything. He had great shot skills, and he could distribute the ball well. That improved over time, and he's a top guy on top of that. So yeah, she gets the goalkeeping slot.
He gets the nod. Okay, great stuff. We'll look at your back four now. What kind of formation are you playing?
Yeah, play with a back four, flat back four, two full backs who like to get forward, good on the ball. Centre half in there who likes to get forward. So a bit of the Keegan era, really just leave one at the back.
Little clue in there then. So let's go with your right back first. Who's in there at right back?
Right back is many to choose from. Obviously Barry Venison was a massive player for us, great pro, but he done it at right back, he done it at centre back, he done it as well in midfield. He was different class. My mate Stevie Watson, big pal. Steve was a fan's favourite, but I haven't seen this lad in the last year or so since we got him. I knew watching from afar he was a top player, but since he's come into the football club, his quality of his play has been exceptional, but his leadership skills have been superb as well. So I've gone for Kieran Trippier. He's been an outstanding signing that, to be honest with you, at the time I didn't think we'd be able to possibly make, because I think he's come out today in the media and said he had an opportunity to go to Man United. But I think he's come across as a real genuine lad. He's come across as someone who wants to enjoy the challenge of getting the club back to where it was. And he's a great leader on top of being a great player, and very much a modern day fullback. Can get forward, has great passing and crossing ability, and obviously set players are a real bonus. So yeah, Kieran Trippier gets the nod at right back.
Yeah, great to see, the fact that we can now select, some of the players we've actually got for these dream teams, because we couldn't have done that in, some relatively previous years. Okay, your other full back then.
Yeah, nothing to do with the surname, but obviously Frank Clark, part of the Fairs Cup team, great full back, strong in a defensive position, but can get forward. Obviously went on to great things at Nottingham Forest as well. On top of that, when I've been in his company, he's a really top guy. So yeah, Frank gets the nod of one of the older guys in the group. And as I said, two full backs who like to get forward, quality deliveries into the penalty area. So yeah, Frank gets the nod there. Centre
halves. I mean, the back four that the entertainers had, it often gets blamed for not winning the league, but it was a really good. It was a really good back four, and it was actually record-breaking figures the season that we nearly won the league, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I couldn't even fit John Beresford in at left back. Outstanding footballer for the club, outstanding personality for the club. Great ambassador for the club. He was brilliant. I think Frank just pips it. Maybe it's because of he got the silverware, really. So, and to see him at the centre half position, some of the players that aren't even in there, who've done great. My good pal, the late great Glenn Roder, obviously didn't make it. Steve Howie, who if without injury would have possibly went on to anything between 50 and 100 England caps. He didn't even make it. So the first centre half, I think most people will agree, was one of the first ball-playing centre-halves of the era that's come around after that. When you talk about playing out from the back, this fella was just majestic. I was lucky enough to play with him. He was just sublime on the ball. He had a massive presence because he was a big guy, could defend. He was a threat from set players. He could defend both boxes. But Philippe Albert was just a magnificent footballer and an absolutely top guy. One of the best guys I've played football alongside. He was brilliant. He was serious when he had to be. He was up for a laugh. He got into the club culture brilliantly, and I think anyone who's seen him play would struggle to find a more accomplished centre half than him.
And that goal he scored against Manchester United, of course, it's been repeated thousands of times, but it never gets boring watching that, does it, Lee?
Well, that epitomises what Philippe was about. Philippe had the ability of a number 10. He had the skills and the touch and the vision and the quality to deliver all that. Is someone like to be a playmaker or someone who plays just off the striker and slips balls through to the striker to score? But because he was such a good defender as well, left-footed into the bargain. Not many of those knocking around, left-footed centre-halves, and an unbelievable piece of business by Kevin Keegan, really, when you think of the fee that was paid to bring him here. And the type of player he was. So Philippe gets the first centre-back slot. Then alongside him, I've gone for an out-and-out, strong, old-fashioned centre-half, but a man with unbelievable qualities, a man who I got to meet when he was chief scout, when I signed for the club as a schoolboy, and probably the most famous man in the history of the club, in my opinion. Won major trophies as the captain, obviously was the manager when they won the Fairs Cup, and obviously Joe Harvey is his name. I'm a big advocate of, thankfully we've got Alan Shearer's statue back inside the stadium in the grounds. We've got the late great Sir Bobby Robson, and I think we should have a full-size statue of Joe Harvey in the stadium, in my opinion, because what he achieved as the captain in the FA Cup eras of the 50s, and then managing the Fairs Cup winning team in the 60s, and then me being lucky enough to meet him when he was chief scout. He was black and white through and through, and not only have I heard great things about him as a player and a manager, and look back on that footage, I got the chance to meet him, and he was an even better guy then. So Joe takes that position, and Joe could have been one of 3 managers to manage the actual team, 2 of them getting the 11. So the manager then picked itself for us.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't endorse what you said enough there with regards to Joe Harvey. I mean, there is a tribute to him. We helped raise the money to get it up there with the Fairs Club, the plaque at the end of the Gallagher. But it doesn't do a guy justice who, not only captained us to FA Cup glory, but, was a fantastic manager as well. And of course, won us a European trophy, our only European trophy. So getting a statue at some point for Joe Harvey, I think would be fantastic. And let's hope that the new owners certainly look at that.
To be honest, Steve, there's that many people I think deserve statues at the club. We could have a stadium full of them. It was down to me.
No, I think you're right. But there are some people who just at different level, And Ward Jackie, of course, the goal scorers are always revered, but Joe Harvey he was Mr. Newcastle.
Yeah, I just think when you think back to, the club have been trophy laden for so long, in terms of major trophies, and he was the last guy to do it, both playing wise and managerial wise, and the quality of player he was, and what he'd done for the club in various different roles. It's he was black and white through and through, as I said.
Yeah, almost out of the FA Cup as manager as well. Obviously, we got beat against Liverpool 3-0, but Joe Harvey was the manager then as well, and fantastic man, great to see him actually in a starting 11 as well that you've picked there. So that's your goalkeeper and your back 4. In the midfield, who's on the right hand side of midfield?
I'm gonna play with 3.
Okay.
It's going to be the most. We're going to have to win about 9-8 this team, because we've got ridiculous amounts of attacking ability, and poor Joe's going to be left on his own, just doing all the defending, him and Shea. So sorry, you two guys. So I'm going to go play them on opposite wings, or play them as a tight 3. There's going to be a lot of freedom between these 3 midfield players, but a ridiculous amount of ability. So the first one in that midfield 3 would be Chrissy Waddle. I mean, I was there at the start of his career when, we used to, you seen this big, tall, gangly lad and this lope and walk that he had. Then when he got the ball at his feet, he was absolutely electric. He used to dip the shoulder. He could go left, he could go right, he could go inside, he could go outside. And he was just a terrific footballer. And then the career he went on to have after playing for Newcastle, obviously, down at Spurs, and then one of the few English players to be a real success abroad when he was playing for Marseille. My old manager at Fulham, John Teager, and I was part of that Marseille team, and he said Chris was a magnificent footballer, and I couldn't disagree with that. So Chris had to come into that. Obviously, Chris was one of that part of the era where we lost 3 of the club's best ever players, because the club at that time didn't have the finances to keep them, and 3 North East lads as well. So but you give the ball to Chris, and he could create things in tight areas. I used to love watching the 80s promotion team with him and Beardsley and Keegan and Mcdermott. He was brilliant. And some people might say, yeah, but he was an attacker. But I'm playing with an attacking midfield, so that he's got to be in there, because when you see the front three, you'll understand why. So Chrissy first, then you go with who I consider to be the best to ever wear black and white shirt. I loved watching him in the 80s, and then I was lucky enough to play alongside him. And just a genius, absolute genius. I remember White Hart Lane, him scoring 2 goals identical to each other, like when you used to be in the schoolyard, when you used to just dribble past all the other kids who weren't particularly good enough. Yeah, he was doing it, international footballers, and this was Peter Beardsley. Could do something out of nothing. That was in terms of creating goals for somebody else or scoring goals himself. It must have been a dream being a striker with him around you. He done it with Lindick at international level. He done it with Aldridge down at Liverpool, and obviously he done it with Coley and Keegan, Shearer, Ferdinand. He done it with all those strikers. The amount of goals he must have made for them. But not only that, he was also a prolific goal scorer himself, and most of his goals were just breathtaking, to be honest. So Peter would be in there alongside Chrissy. So we've got some ammunition in terms of feeding the strikers.
It's up to who completes the midfield three.
Well, there's only one man, and for me, if he hadn't got the injury in the FA Cup final against Forest, would have went to Lazio and become probably the best player in the world at that time. Unfortunately for us at Newcastle, we didn't see a lot of him. He was only there a couple of seasons, but we realised very quickly there was a special talent, and obviously that's Paul Gascoigne, and just a genius, and I mean a genius in terms of he was up there with the George Bests. I only ever seen George Best in video footage. Never had the chance to see him live, but Paul was just wow! What a talent. Obviously went down to Spurs and matured under Terry Venables in terms of his performances. Because when he came back from that World Cup, Italia 90, remember the FA Cup run that went on was basically down to Paul. He used to, I think the television companies just picked Spurs for the live game of the FA Cup weekend every weekend, that competition, because Paul was just scoring goal of the competition with each round. As each round passed, he was scoring an even better goal. And as I said, the irony for me is he took them to the cup final. And then obviously we know the history of that and getting that serious injury when he was, I think everyone has said it, he was overhyped. And that was Paul, though, because he loved football. And if he had went to Lazio after that cup final without that injury, for me, he would have been, definitely the Ballon d'Or winner, or whatever the equivalent was at that era. Sensational footballer. So not a bad midfield three. As I said, all the best, Joe and Shea. You've got a lot to do. But what I would think in this team, the opposition would find it hard to get the ball, to be honest. The only time they'd probably get the ball is if they were taking a kick off from a goal. So that's the way I'd be looking at this team. And then we've got obviously the front three, which is just absolutely mental when you think of some of the players. Supermac not even in there, some of the great players, Faustino Asprilla, David Kelly, who all know that the importance of the goal he scored at Leicester that day. Some of the other players that were in there, and Patrick Kluivert, just amazing. Some of the players that haven't made it, but I think when I rattle off the three, you'll understand why. So my first one is obviously a player who came for a short period of time, but his goal ratio for the club is probably one of the best, if not the best, and that's Andy Cole. I think someone who took to the number 9 jersey and just set light to it. He just was. When I talk about what Peter could do for strikers, I mean, him and Peter had a great relationship. I had a good relationship with him. It was quite simple in terms of he always played on the shoulder of the last defender. He had a great change of pace, and his finishing was just extraordinary, really. And the goals he scored, both to get us over the line in the Championship, but then in the Premier League, was a phenomenal return. So I'll always think that Coley would have to be in there just for his goal ratio alone. And then obviously moved on to our big rivals at that time, Man United, and got some personal glories with it, the medals he won in his career. So Coley goes in there. Then you've got this guy gets in the team and he doesn't become the manager, because I didn't think it was fair for him to be both the player and the manager. So obviously this is Kevin Keegan. When you talk about one man dragging a football club by its bootlaces and dragging it up from the doldrums, he done that in the 80s. You know, this was the era when I first went. 1980 was the first time I went to St James's, and I went there with family from out of loyalty. The team wasn't particularly good. The stadium what wasn't eye-catching. You know, there wasn't a lot of success about. Kevin turned up and just changed the face of the football club within weeks. The stadium was packed. We were the team that everyone wanted to watch. The television broadcasters wanted to be at St James's Park for the games, and it was just electric. And he was like the Pied Piper in terms of the fans coming, but also the players. Took Chrissy Waddle's game to a new level. Peter Beardsley arrived, obviously looked a young player, looked like he learned a lot under Kevin. We got the great Terry Mcdermott on off the back of that with Kevin's friendship. And lads who, you know, like say lads like Kenny Wharton, John Anderson, those lads, they start to shine, you know. Obviously, Glenn came in, Glenn Roda, Jeff Clark at centre half, Davy Mack, Davy Mack in there as well. So Kevin Carr, it was great. I loved it. I was just talking to someone the other day about, you know, at that era, there was no public transport on the festive fixtures, and we used to play the most local team, and in that promotion season it was Carlisle, if you remember. So there was a so it was a double header for Carlisle, and so even the dog agrees.
Do you need to get it or not? Or are you all right?
Used to walk where I lived and on to St James's, and as you got closer to the ground, more and more people were coming in, and you were popping into the pub and that with your dad and your brothers and that. I mean, I must have had 25 packets of crisps on the way to the game, because my dad, every time my dad stopped for a pint to go to the match, I had to have a bag of crisps. So, a great time. I remember the Carlisle game at home on the Boxing Day. I think we won 5-0. Kevin Carr saved the penalty at one end, and we went straight down the other end. I think Kevin Keegan headed one in from a Chrissy Waddle cross. It was unbelievable, the football that season. Loved it. Arthur Cox, man, I got to work with later on. It was the manager and a real great guy as well. So yeah, KK is in there. And obviously the last position, we all know who takes that. The club's record goal scorer. You know, what can you say? If he wasn't the best of his era, he's up there as the very best. He could do everything. He could score 6-yard tap-ins. He could score headers from the 6-yard box. He scores headers from 12 yards out. He could smash free kicks in. He could whip free kicks in. He could cross a ball himself. He even used to tell me, you know, because he wasn't shy, that he was the best crosser of the ball in the club. It was just unfortunate that he had to be on the end of some of them. So, just a phenomenal all-round player, and obviously a great lad. You know, Geordie, and he's just one of those players, really, when you think what he could have had in terms of trophies if he had a win elsewhere, but his loyalty to his football club was immense, and he put that before personal gain, and it was only fitting. You know, when he went on to become the record goal scorer for the football club. So yeah, it was probably the most simplest decision. It was who goes around him, you know, and So I think that starting 11 would put the frighteners on anyone. But I think what opposition managers would be saying was, if we can get the ball and keep it, we might have a chance of scoring one or two.
Yeah.
So just Shea would have to be on top of his game.
So that's your 11. You've got some subs. We'll give you 5. I know you wanted a few more, but give us your 5 substitutes.
Right, this is really tough. This is where you start feeling really tough on people because they can't even make the substitutes bench. And I've chopped and changed, of that over the last couple of days. So my first sub is obviously a very historic captain of the football club. And the last captain to 2 seconds.
I'll just do the advert as Lee has to take a slight break. And it's, as always, a big thank you to Spider VPN and the guys at Spider VPN. It's worldwide coverage with the lads. And let me get the website address up. It is the only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy. And it's VPN protected. Buy yours now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors. 0191 389 7245. And Gardener Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.gohd.com. Thanks to Away Day Clothing and to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Walls and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Handmade Sauces in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk, 01768 210 102. And thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. If you want to subscribe, hit the Newcastle NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the subscribe button. Today, hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your social media. We are available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Usually goes up a day after the show has been broadcast on YouTube. Don't forget, we do support the food bank on the show. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is where you can make a virtual donation to the food bank 365 days of the year. So yes, we're on your subs, Lee, and just looking at the person you were describing, listen, hearing who you were describing, it can only be one man. It must be Bobby Moncur.
Yeah, obviously, fantastic captain of the football club. As I said, last person to lift major silverware. So, yeah, Bobby has to be in that. He was a good player as well. Hey, he's not in it just because he lifted the silverware. The guy was a good player as well. So, yeah, Bobby makes the bench, yeah. He'd probably be daunted by the fact that if he did replace anyone, he'd be one of the few defenders in the team. So, I'm not too sure if he'd be looking forward to coming on, that's for sure.
Okay, who's next? Who's next on the bench sitting alongside Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, God, it's been extremely tough, but this guy has to be 2 spells at the football club as a player, an unbelievable spell as an assistant manager, a glorious career in terms of trophies that he's won. I mean, he's won that many. He kind of keep track of them, 7 championships, I think 3 European Cups, 3 League Cups, PFA Player of the Year, Match of the Day, Goal of the Season, England caps. One of the first dynamic, what you'd call midfield runners, really. Break the lines and score goals, and was an unbelievable finisher for a midfield player. And it's Terry Mcdermott. Obviously become a very good friend of mine, Terry. But, when I worked with him, when he was my assistant manager at Huddersfield in Birmingham, I used to tell him, you need to tell these young guys what you've done and what you're about. But he was so humble, he didn't feel it was necessary, he didn't want to. He worked in their era. So when I used to tell the boys what he'd done, they were like gobsmacked, and how humble he was, and just loved the laugh and the joke. It was a great foil for me. But it was also brilliant when he was assistant manager. Kevin was the serious one. Terry would make sure all the lads were feeling good about themselves, feeling happy. And if there was anything, if Kevin had to make, which I'm trying to do here, make tough decisions on a starting 11 when he had many good players, Terry'd be the one that would, put his arm around you and just say, listen, you've done good things, don't worry. It's only because the manager, and he was good like that. He was like the sounding block. He was the link between, the manager and the players, because, sometimes the manager has that many things going on. They need someone like that. But what a fabulous footballer. What a great man. So Terry, I mean, I feel tough on him that he's not even in the starting 11 when I consider what he's achieved. So it tells you what type of players we've already got in that team.
Yeah, great selection, no, great guy. And next sub?
The next one, just obviously, there's a lot of emotion in this one, but there's no doubt he was an unbelievable footballer and an even better man, a great guy, Gary Speed. Was a sensational football player, was a great signing. But as I said, whatever you say about him as a footballer, even another 10 times more than that, an even better man. Loved the laugh, loved the joke, was Mr. Serious when he needed to be, was all wanting. He was super fit, Gary, and he done it because he was always trying to take on the modern techniques of sports science. Took that on, obviously, his managerial career, changed things around with the Welsh FA. Everyone's, rightly so, putting the success that Chris Coleman had and now Rob Page is down to the foundations Gary put in place with the Welsh FA. And, all I can say about what I think Gary is, my record at Huddersfield, our 43 match unbeaten run, that came to an end the days when I found out Gary had passed. We are on our way down to Charlton Athletic on the Sunday when I got the horrendous news, and I've got to say, I wasn't up for the game. I wasn't mentally ready. I couldn't prepare the team like I normally did. I tried my very best. When we'd done the minute silence before the game, it was heartbreaking. And throughout the game, I was just thinking of Gary. And I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but that was my first loss in 44 games. And whether I hadn't prepared the team diligently like I usually do, I thought I had, but there's possibly a good chance I hadn't, because especially on the Sunday when I got down to the hotel, I basically just locked myself in my room and stayed there most of the day until the next day, until the Monday when we had the game on the night time. And it was just a hammer blow. I think it was like that to everybody, because everyone who come around him just knew he was just an exceptional guy. Forget the football, I all knew that. Everybody in the world who's seen him play could see he was an exceptional footballer. But the people lucky enough to have been in his company and been around him knew that he was just a sensational guy, So that was, this one was a lot of emotion in that, but not in terms of the football ability. He deserves to be he could have easily been in the 11 as well. So Gary Speed's one. The next one's another midfield player, but obviously came in as a winger. I became very close to him personally. Great pal of mine. And not often you would say that. Lad from the banks of the Tyne and lad from the banks of the Thames becoming pally. But Rob Lee, brilliant. Great guy. Absolutely brilliant. Another one you think, no doubt if Rob hears this, he'll come on to us and have a moan that he never got in the start 11. That would be Rob all round. So I'm expecting a call off him as soon as this goes out. So, yeah, a brilliant footballer. Someone who changed himself from a dribbling winger to someone who played in the middle of the pitch and was the ultimate box-to-box. He could defend, he could break lines, he was a great goal scorer, he's a great passer, he was aggressive. He was great company. I love being in his company. I still do. Whenever he's up in the northeast, he'll buzz us and make sure I can meet up with him. Him and Bez, we'd like to meet up together because he's a great lad. In my managerial career, I signed one of his sons, Ollie, for Birmingham, and just a great bloke, but a really top player as well.
One space left. Who fills that then?
Well, this is a guy who could have been in the 11 as well. And I keep saying that great guys are not in just because because they're great guys. They're in because they're top players as well. And I think people won't disagree with this one in terms of Les Ferdinand. There'll be probably people out there who are saying, well, he should have been an actual starting 11. And I couldn't disagree with that. I just wish I could have squeezed a few more in. And mate, that's FIFA. I wouldn't change the rules and play 15 players. Because the team would be that, to get these players in. Absolute gentleman, this guy. One of the nicest football people you'd ever want to meet. And what a player. Power, pace, touch, strength, athleticism. Used to hang in the air for them crosses from Genoa. I mean, look, there's another player, not even in the 16, David Genoa. For 3 months, the first 3 months I played with him, he was unplayable. But Les just, great. And that deep laugh he had as well. Obviously lived close by to each other, because when Coley left, he rented Coley's place, which was just across the way from me. And I loved. He was just a superb bloke and a fantastic football player. And one that wasn't frightened of the challenge, because if you remember when he came, he took over from Coley when Coley had gone to Man United, and Kevin stood on the stairs at the Milburn stand reception that night and spoke to the fans who were a little bit, miffed that Coley had gone. And Kevin, famous words, "You'll have to trust me. I can, I'm the man to do it." And he already had Les, because I knew from personal experience he'd been to watch Les on numerous occasions for QPR. And he already had that lined up, but obviously it had to wait till the summer. So Kevin knew in his own mind that the type of striker who he wanted, and he was getting. So, yeah, Les takes the last place.
Great team. We know Kevin isn't going to manage them. Who is in the dugout as manager then, Lee?
Well, for me, there was 3 options. And as I've said, 2 of them are playing. Late, great Joe Harvey, and obviously Kevin Keegan. So, the third man and the only other choice for me is, our beloved Sir Bobby Robson. And my only regret in my career was I never had the chance to work under him. There was opportunities, I think, before when Newcastle tried to bring him to the club when I was still there. I think after maybe when Kevin quit in the 90s, before Kenny Dalglish took over. But Bobby was tied into a contract, and as we all know, a very loyal man. And he was working for some big clubs at the time. Had the chance to meet him many times when I came back up in Newcastle, and he'd invite us into the training ground. While I was with Fulham, there was a stage where they tried to come back in for us. I would have jumped through hoops at the time to come back and play for my beloved club, but not just that, to play for this man, because I seen the difference he was making after what had been a really tough period under Ruud Gullit. And, I seen the improvement he was making in the team, but in individuals as well. So he has to be the manager of this group of players. And, there's some massive names there, there's some superstars, but Sir Bobby, he could handle all those types of players. He'd managed superstars through all his career, made unknown players into superstars as well, like he did with his Ipswich team. And he was the only choice in terms of managing this fantastic group of players. And what Sir Bobby did as well, he wasn't frightened of making the hard decisions. There's sometimes, our number 9, Mr. Shearer, who's got left out a couple of times with Sir Bobby, and he wasn't frightened of making those tough decisions like that. But I think he always kept the players' respect when he done those decisions. So he could handle all those, because there's a lot of egos in that dressing room, that's for sure.
Great stuff. Well, that's a fantastic trip down memory lane. Lee's team, Shea Given in goal, Kieran Trippier, Frank Clark, and then Philip Albert and Joe Harvey making up a very tight back 4. And then the midfield, Chrissy Waddle, Peter Beardsley and Paul Gascoigne, a nice Geordie trio in the middle there. And then the 3 up front, wow, goals galore from Andy Cole, Kevin Keegan and Alan Shearer. And the bench, chock a block full of legends as well. Bobby Moncur, Terry McDermott, the late, great Gary Speed, Rob Lee, and Sir Les Ferdinand. And what a manager as well to boot, Sir Bobby Robson. A great trip down memory lane, Lee, as always. Didn't expect anything else from you, mate. Thank you for becoming part of that series. And hopefully with a new season on the way, we can get you back on, just have a chat about what's going on at Newcastle United and how Bobby's progressing at Liverpool, mate. But as always, a pleasure to spend a little bit of time with you on here.
Thanks, Steve. All the best, everyone.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.